Hey, Jeff here from Wetbird Environmental, and today I'm bringing you yet another plant profile. This time we're talking about this plant right here, which is the tall everlasting or white everlasting Coronidium elatum. So it's another one of our local everlasting daisies or paper daisies, whatever you want to call them. It's an absolutely beautiful plant, stunning. Typically found growing on the edges of rainforest. I find it quite a lot in disturbed areas. It is in the Asteraceae family, so that makes a bit of sense. There's quite a bit of it along Jamboree Mountain Road as you get up further up the escarpment. That's typically where I see it growing locally, is those sort of higher, sort of mid to higher escarpment on the edges of rainforest. There's a whole bunch of it here, so it gets its name tall everlasting because it is quite big compared to a lot of the other paper daisies and everlasting daisies that we have. So this does get up to 2 meters. In fact, this one behind me is almost as tall as me, which is pretty cool. Yeah, they can be quite a nice plant, and they can be one that's a little bit more suitable in terms of your herbaceous layer for revegetation projects. So typically a herbaceous layer and the grass layer we don't plant a lot of, especially when we're doing like paddock re-veg, because we want something that is going to get up above the kikuyu and stuff and create a bit of shade. So typically we go trees and shrubs, but this is actually classified as a sub-shrub. And pretty much what I take from that is it's somewhere between a herbaceous plant and a woody shrub. They can get pretty tall. They are pretty easy to maintain compared to some of the other herbaceous plants that might crawl on the ground through the long grasses and stuff. Really good candidate for re-veg. You only need to get a handful of these established. They are in the Asteraceae family. They do create quite a bit of seed. So even if you can get, half a dozen or so established on a site, they're going to self-seed pretty readily, and they'll come up wherever there's an opportunity for them to come up. They are also quite good in the garden. So Schlaven Head's Native Botanic Gardens has quite a bit of this. I think a few are planted and the rest just come up on their own around the place. But they've used it to really good effect. It's a great filler plant. It'll just fill up a whole area. It's got beautiful foliage, kind of silvery, kind of bluey, sort of greeny color. The flowers are obviously quite pretty, being a whole big bunches of white everlasting flowers. I'll just take you and have a quick look at the actual parts of the plant and how you can identify. So probably the most obvious identifying feature of these guys is their white paper daisy flower. They form these clusters typically at the ends of the stems. You can see on this one here, we've got everywhere where there's like a little stem coming up, on the end of it there's a cluster of flowers. So that's one way to identify them compared to some of the other everlastings we have locally. The other thing is they're white, where like Xerochryzum bracteatum and Fiscisum, the sticky everlasting and the common everlasting are both yellow flowering. And then some of our other ones like Chrysocephalum and things like that, the small everlasting is obviously a lot smaller. The height is another tell. Like I said, these are quite big. They can get to 2 meters. This one here is probably about 1.4 to 1.5 meters. It's almost as tall as me. I'm not the tallest person in the world. But yeah, one of the other features here is you can see, we get nice and close in here. You see it's quite woolly on the stems. The stems are very, very woolly. So if you don't have flowers, that can be a really good tell. And same with the undersides of the leaves. Really woolly. It's actually quite soft to touch. If you're familiar with the plant lamb's ears, feels very much like that. So you got these concolorous leaves. Well, actually I think the leaf itself isn't concolorous. It's just because it has this white sort of fluffy bit on the bottom that makes it appear that way. But yeah, so these dark green leaves. The white hairs give it a kind of grayish sort of look to it from a distance. If you don't have flowers, like with this little seedling down here, you just got something like this. Yeah, the easiest tell is just how woolly that stem is. We don't really have many like weeds locally that are going to look too much like this coming up on rainforest margins. Some things you could mistake it for are, say, like tree tobacco, Solanum, Solanum moriatum. I'm probably saying that wrong. My brain always goes to Sherlock Holmes with that one. There's not too many. Caniza is another one. Caniza bonariensis or canadensis or sumatrensis. All three of those we get locally, and all three of them do look a little bit like this, but they're nowhere near this woolly. They're definitely not soft to touch. They don't have this really white stem. They're probably not going to be as robust as this, honestly. So I'll see if I can find a tree tobacco to show you as a comparison. There was one around here somewhere. Okay, so not a seedling, but this is a tree tobacco, and it is a very furry plant. You can see the venations on the bottom here are much more prominent, and you could mistake small ones of these for them. They do have a much larger leaf. You can see this leaf is, pretty large. It's almost as big as my hand. Well, it's bigger than my hand in length, but not quite in width. So they do get quite a lot larger leaves. These also get much taller. These will get turned into like a small tree. So that is one way to tell them apart. This is a good side-by-side comparison of Coronidium elatum and Solanum meridianum. This one is tree tobacco, which is a weed, and we want to sort of get rid of that, whereas this is one that we want. Probably the most obvious way to tell them apart at this stage is by looking at the leaf. So if we look at, quickly just go in here, look at the Solanum. We've got quite prominent venation on top and bottom of the leaf, even though they are both quite furry to the touch. That is one giveaway. And yeah, even and it's not anywhere near as furry. We go over here, we can't really see, we can see the mid vein and we can see some venation, but it's very subtle. And this underside of the leaf is like really furry. You can't see like any of the venation on that leaf, so that's probably the easiest giveaway. Also just the way the leaves are coming out and the way the habit of the plant, if you look at it from a top-down view compared to that, they're quite different. So they can be tricky if you're not looking at them together and you're not super familiar with either species, but once you're familiar with one or both, especially after you see them side by side, they are quite different. So yeah, that's Coronidium elatum. I just wanted to quickly film this video and show people this plant, because a lot of times where I see this is like roadsides and things, and it's a bit tricky to sort of film and talk about it in that context. So it's cool to be able to see these somewhere where I can do this. So I hope you found that useful. Again, if you are interested in the local flora of our region and native plants more generally, I have a playlist which has a whole bunch of these plant profiles in it, and I'm trying to continue to film more of these and add more of these as a bit of a resource for people who are wanting to learn more about our local plants. But yeah, that's it for this one, and I'll see you next one. Bye for now.